I'm Leslie Smith with McCormick L.A. Public Relations, and I just want to take this time to do a little video blog, a vlog, if you will, with a colleague of mine, Damon Colaluca, and he specializes in reinvention. And so today we want to talk about mindset. So Damon, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Damon, and I am the principal consultant at Colaluca and Associates, and where we help emerging and established social impact organizations thrive in uncertainty. So we help organizations deal with change and creating opportunities out of things that they may have looked at as disruptions.
Very good. And that seems to be the way we are right now.
Right now, there's a lot. We're pretty busy.
Yes. Well, I've seen the term mindset a lot in your website, in your newsletter, and it seems to be all the buzz on LinkedIn and every place else. Every place it says they have to have the right mindset. Social behaviorists, everybody are talking about mindset. So how do you define mindset? Is it different than just having thoughts or being mindful? Or
mindset is closely related to our beliefs. It's how we see the world. And based on our mindset, it's kind of how we respond to and interact with the world. So it has a significant influence on our interactions day to day. So if I believe that resources are scarce, you might see that every interaction I have is a competition, right? Because every interaction, someone's going to walk away a loser, someone's going to walk away a winner, right? So it's a very stressful way to see the world. Or I could believe that there are abundant resources, so that every interaction that I have is more of an exploration of how do we both win, right? And that's a much less stressful situation. So my mindset is really how we see the world, and it affects how we interact with the world. And the good thing, much like thoughts, is that we can change our mindset anytime we want. It's not something that is fixed in our mind. We can change our thoughts. We can change our mindset. And you use the term mindful. We have to just be mindful that that's a possibility.
So it sounds like it's more than an attitude. It's more like a sort of a framework of thinking.
Right. It's how we perceive the world. So, Carol Dweck was the Stanford psychologist who wrote the book Mindset and really popularized, not just popularized, she discovered these connections about how people perceive the world, and what that perception does to their interactions. And it really is an exploration in how the way we perceive the world is our reality. And so we can change our reality anytime. And that's why it's so important in reinvention that we understand that the first reinvention is just to imagine the world working differently than we have allowed ourselves to believe.
Sure. I love that. So it's like a lens almost.
Absolutely.
Take off those gloomy glasses and put on your rose-colored glasses.
Yeah, it's a little like that. Absolutely. And it can be that it can be changed that quickly, as in putting on different, taking a different mindset and looking at something, or using a different lens or a different point of view when looking at a problem.
Sure. So you mentioned Carol Dweck. So she was one of the top resources. I Googled mindset. And so first came up, just sort of a definition and this and that. And then there was, 40 books on mindset. So I went, what happens if I Google mindset books? Sure. Then there were millions, 130 millions in, the split second that Google can find everything. And surely there weren't 130 million books, but there's references to those things. And Carol Dweck was surely at the top. And there were some others too. And I mean, I'm a lover of Jen Sincero. You're a Badass books. And, and she gets knocked around a little bit. People are like, oh, right. Like it's that easy. Just change your thinking. So what are your favorite sources besides Carol Dweck? It sounds like she's on your list.
She's definitely on the bookshelves back there. I have let me see, a few of them pop into my mind. Switch by Chip and Dan Heath. I think it's called Switch: How to Change When Change is Hard.
I'm going to write these down. You always have good books for me.
Yeah, that's
and I like
really
those Heath one. Boys.
The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Okay.
That's for me, that's a book about mindset. Start with Why by Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
And any of Brene Brown's books, but I like Rising Strong is a good one. And then one that I don't, I think any book, if you're looking for it, can tell you something about mindset. But I read Moby Dick almost every year, and I see Moby Dick as an allegory in mindset, in someone who is just unwilling and unaware of how their mindset is destroying them and the people around them.
Interesting. Yeah. Do you find these people in your groups and start calling them Ishmael? And
yeah, Ahab. Yeah, it's but and that's an example. There's a mindset that you can have where, and we see this a lot in the social impact sector, is folks who go into work in the social impact sector are looking to save the world. And so it's very easy for them to cast themselves as a hero. And the minute you do that, there is a villain and there is a victim. And you get this weird drama triangle that doesn't force, but it traps you in a role. And it keeps you from seeing other truths. And so you have to be mindful of, am I falling into this role of hero, meaning I have to assign villainy to somebody. Somebody's causing this poor victim to be, to suffer, and I'm going to solve it. And, sometimes that's not the best point of view to have when we're dealing with very complex issues with high levels of intersectionality, right? Where there's so many things that affect that one issue.
Right. It's never simple, is it? Right. Layers and layers of stuff. So you have an e-newsletter that you get out regularly that I love reading, and you focus on a mindset, a tool set, and a skill set. So tell me about those, how those differ, how these work together, and how they help nonprofits.
Well, they all work. I see that as all three of those work together. And if you're going to be successful, especially in a change effort, they all three have to be present. So as a leader, you want to be paying attention to all three of those things. And it kind of works like they're interconnected. So mindset, if you have a mindset about something, you need a tool set to get it to do something about it. But tool set requires a skill set, right? To actually use the tool. And the skill set requires a mindset, right? Is how am I going to use this tool? So they all connect. And it would be, I think of a situation where, I've worked with my team and they understand the context of the community. They have the right mindset. We invested in the right tools, right? We have all the toys that we need to achieve our goal, but I forgot to train them in how to use them.
Oh, sure.
Right? How frustrating would that be, right? Even scarier is I give them the tools and the training how to use them, but I don't give them a mindset that would be helpful for them. And so they're kind of like a baby with a hammer. They're just banging on stuff, without understanding how their actions are affecting others. So you can see how they all kind of need to work together, and that I do several. I've done several diagnostics where I can go into an organization and we do some failure analysis, and one of the things we can always point to is one of those things is missing, right? In a if not two things of those are missing. So it's really a high return on investment for leaders to keep tabs on all three of those and making sure that they have all three of those present in any efforts that they're trying to move forward.
That's a great way to describe that. And I can see that in marketing too, where people, they get the tool set, they go, I have a brochure, or I've joined the chamber, and then they go, yeah, what are you going to do? Their mindset isn't right. What are you going to do for me? Instead of how can I move my feet to make these tools work for me? And then they don't have the skill set. They don't know how to network. They don't know, how to build. They don't know, they're not keeping track of their CRM. They're not doing any of that.
Right.
So yeah, that's a really great way to look at things. Those three prongs there. You talked about the not willing to switch the mindset. And as a facilitator, if we get to have a pessimist in the group, I'm like, oh, here we go. They take a lot of energy. And it's not that their points aren't good. It just takes more energy. And especially in social impact, working with nonprofits, we want everyone to be moving, in that collective impact framework and that, mindset that we're all going to work towards the same goal. And sometimes you have somebody that's not helping. And so it drags things down. And recently, Adam Grant on Twitter had put something that you need pessimists because they find the flaws quicker. And I went, oh, no. And so I started commenting and somebody else started commenting back. And we had this little conversation. By the end, I could see the point. But in social impact, we want everyone to be positive. We want everyone to move along. So how does a pessimist work into what you do? And do you see it as helpful, or what's your thought on that?
I think there's in the social impact sector, one of the challenges that we have that's very it's psychologically draining is that we have to hold at the same time in our heads the reality of today and how badly it sucks, and yet hold out hope for our actions and that there will be something better in the future. That those two thoughts have to exist together for us to be successful. Because if we're only hopeful and we don't recognize how bad it is today and what the real challenges are that people are facing, in their daily lives, that's problematic, right? That's kind of blind idealism, right? And you can see that. And if we're only about, playing whack-a-mole and trying to deal with the symptoms that folks are going through today, without much, vision toward how this is building, all I'm doing is solving the same problems over and over and over, right? And that can get very draining, right? So you kind of we have to hold both of those ideals in our heads. And pessimists or skeptics, I think are valuable in any organization, and anyone can take that mindset on. That's not a person, it's a mindset, right? So but I do think it has its place, and I understand what Adam's going for. We have if I'm talking about an idea, and if I'm a leader in a social impact organization and I have an idea, I can think of 1,000 ways that this is going to go well. I have a very hard time thinking about how many ways it's going to go wrong, right? And if you just think of our recent past, right, we have a failure of imagination on how badly things can go. If you look at the 2008, real estate crisis, I mean, we were on the brink of actual, financial collapse, right? If you look at COVID, if you look at the 2020 elections and the insurrection, if you look at right now, there are more fires raging on the globe than there ever has been ever, right? It's insane. Most of us are like, we're caught flat-footed. It's like, I couldn't imagine that would happen. But you know who did imagine that those things happen? Skeptics and pessimists, right?
Sure. Right.
So folks who there are folks who pay attention to the data and who say, well, we actually knew it was a pretty good shot that we were going to get COVID at some point. It was on all the global threat ratings, it was above 70%, right? So it's kind of like, all right. So yes, there are people who understand that. I think what you're speaking to is when do you use that and when don't you use it, right? And so
Right.
if we're in a we're in a decision-making process and we're gathering diverse points of view from all over the place, yeah, absolutely. We want Pollyannas and pessimists. We want everybody, right? Give me your thoughts. But at some point, there needs to be an agreement that, okay, we're now done gathering information and we're going to make a decision. And then once that decision is made, it's as if none of the other options existed, right? So the pessimist shuts up, the Pollyannas shut up, everybody shuts up, and it's this one path. This is what we're going to go down, right? So that's kind of there is a place for that. And I would think what's difficult in a facilitation is you haven't set those ground rules haven't been set of what are we here for, and are we taking that in? It's kind of like how you build consensus, right? You've built consensus before in a group, and doing it well takes a lot of agreements up front, right? With this is how we're going to proceed. This is how we're going to disagree. This is how we're going to break disagreements, right? So everybody feels heard and confident in the process, so that even if they didn't get their way, they're good with it, right? That's kind of how I see it. So and I can see that if you're just kind of facilitating a meeting, you haven't had any of those conversations, so just folks are just popping up left and right with their normal demeanor, and some of those will be, why are we doing this? This is stupid. We did this a year ago.
This never works, right?
Yeah.
Right. They're not willing to challenge legacy ideas. Like, we've done that before, didn't work. Let's just do it this way. Well,
and there's a difference between like a skeptic, somebody who says, show me the data and I'm good, with someone who is trying to conserve something that no longer exists or is no longer helpful. Right. So
absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yes. And sometimes you can't tell what it is at first.
No.
Right.
Yeah. You're having to do that live in front of people.
Right. But I like that you said that that's a behavior. It's not necessarily a person, because I do think it's very situational. I think there are people who are highly critical at work and go home and everything's great, whatever you want to do. You have no opinions about anything. And, that's great. Whatever. So that's always good to keep that in mind. And there's certain people that I've been in organizations with that we never agreed in the organization, but we're good friends.
Yeah.
And so outside that organization, we're like, oh no, we don't talk about that organization. It's not our topic. Yeah. But what are you watching on Netflix? And we just go a different direction.
Yeah. We are not our behaviors, right? We are, our behaviors are again, greatly influenced by our mindset, and our mindset can shift from work to home to other situations where we adopt different mindsets based on probably things that we're not even aware of, right? That we are, things we've been taught, things we've seen, things other people have told us throughout the years that if left unexamined, we just think that's the way it is, instead of saying, why do I believe that? Right? Why do I believe that? And is that helpful to me?
Yes. Well said. Yes. So thinking about nonprofits, so they sort of have this pyramid shape of plans and stuff, if you will. So they have their vision, their mission, they have their strategic plan, they pull their annual plan. And then from that, they have your programmatic plan and their financial plan and their marketing plan, and et cetera, et cetera. So when you're looking at changing a mindset and reinventing something, with them, where do you start? Do you start in that programmatic level, or do you go, oh, look, your mission is kind of wonky for where we are now? Or what's your take on that?
Well, it's, that's funny. I start wherever there's the most energy.
Okay.
Right. So if there's energy around a program and folks are excited, even if it's negative energy is good, right? Okay. All I have to do is reframe it and use that energy to move forward. If everybody's apathetic about everything, we're done, right? There's no energy to change. There's nothing to do. But so I look for where there's energy and then I focus there. But I like the way you framed that question, in that the mission of an organization reflects the mindset of the founders, right? It reflects, this is how we see, our cause. This is how we see this is our purpose, right? This is our, reason for being. And our vision is how, if we're successful, how the world will be when we're all done. And so that sometimes it's helping organizations examine the mindset of their mission, right? And say, what things would we have to believe to write a mission statement like this, right? Do we have to believe that people have agency, or do we believe that people are victims and cannot act for themselves or think for themselves? What are our beliefs that drive this? And so I see it as something that, again, you can't see it on a website, right? You can't see mindset on a website. It's not in gold, the gold letters on the wall. That's not mindset. Those are all reflections of mindset, right? Just like culture is a reflection of, or the reflection of culture is how people treat each other, right? So it's the behavior of everyone together. The policies of the organization reflect that culture, and that culture comes from a certain mindset, right? An organization with a lot of rules believes that people are, if left to their own devices, will take advantage, right? Organizations with fewer rules, and we've seen this with paid time off, right? Where some organizations, I remember when I first started in the working world in the 80s, there were lots of rules around when you could take vacation, and how you applied, and this and that. And nowadays it's kind of like, yeah, you got 2 weeks, do what you want, or you have unlimited. Just let us know what's going on. We care about you. We know life happens. You're still responsible for your results. You're a grown up. Go do your thing, right? So there's an evolution there of understanding or seeing workers as humans instead of just a robot that we can't make a machine to do this thing, so we'll put a human there, right? Is kind of the thing. But it goes back to mindset is something that in an organization, and change will make this happen, is it gives us the opportunity to examine and define and explore the mindset, to help everybody see that regardless of what your personal mindset is, here's what this organization is. These are the things that this organization believes about the future, or about people, or its role, based on the things that the documents, the things that we can see, that the founders started. And with legacy organizations, it's easy to forget, right? Why are we here? And I would say that almost all social impact organizations are about changing something. Most of it's changing things moving forward, identifying that things are not right now, and we're going to change it to make it better. That's all progressive thinking, right? There's no thinking there of at least for the organization, of trying to recapture something that doesn't exist, right? Because there's no back to normal, right? Time doesn't go backwards. So you can move forward into a new normal, right? You can establish, but there's no going back to something, right? So, those theories are destined to fail because they're swimming upstream from reality. But it reminds me of a speech that David Foster Wallace gave. I think it was back in 2008, where he talked about a parable, and mindset is kind of reflected in this parable. So that it goes that there's two young fish swimming along, and an older fish is coming toward them. And as they pass, the older fish says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And they just pass and nod. And as the fish continue to swim, the two younger fish, one of them looks at the other one and says, "What the hell is water?" Right. And so I think mindset's a lot like that in organizations. And if we don't, and culture as well, if we don't examine it, we don't talk about it, if we're not aware, it just is the thing that we're in, and we don't understand, we don't understand the way that the world is influenced, or that our mindset is influencing us in decision making, in planning, in fundraising, all that stuff.
Right. And it is interesting, people with the wrong mindset can really muck things up, right? Sometimes you see that they'll hire a new executive director and it's not a fit.
Right. And I think that in hiring, that's one of the tougher things. It's such a performative, non-effective way to, the whole interview process is not meant to get the right person. It's meant to weed out the wrong people. And, and I don't even know if it's wrong. It's just, it's the folks who don't fit this ideal that we've put out, that no one person could possibly do all the things on a job description. Or if you've looked at, an average CEO job listing, the only thing they leave off is can walk on water. Right. It's like, okay, I don't know how one person can do all this stuff. Being able to examine or talk about what's your mindset on the world? How do you view the world? How do you react to the world? Do you see change as threatening? Do you see change do you react to change fearfully? Or do you look at it, do you have an open mindset or a fixed mindset? Do you, and I don't know that there's a wrong mindset. There are just ones that are more helpful than others. Right. What a board, when they're looking for leadership, probably hasn't examined their organization's mindset or the mindset that's needed to come into this thing. Because a lot of times boards will be hired or will want to hire a change maker, somebody who's going to shake things up, but they don't want that. Right. They haven't examined themselves and to say, are we ready for a change? Because we'll have to do stuff different. So the first time the poor ED walks in with all these great changes, they're like, nah, we ain't doing that.
Right.
Are you insane?
Right.
We've been doing this for 20 years this way. How dare you come in? It's like, didn't you just hire me to change? Well, not us. Change that out there. I'm not talking about you changing how the board works. Right?
You're supposed to hire a wizard.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Very good. Well, this has been wonderful. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you want to make sure that you get to say?
No, I just, the idea that mindsets somehow are fixed, like our height or our hair color or eye color, it's just not true. We can change our mindsets and reframing situations, and we can apply the meaning of an event. We can decide what that means to us and how we want to integrate that into our own stories. There's no sacred ledger of this is how these events should be interpreted. You can interpret your events however you want, and reframing is a great skill to have, especially as a leader, to help your team when they're stuck and feeling defeated or feeling like they can't move forward. A good leader who can reframe a situation, can help that team get out of that rut and move and continue to move forward when they've all been convinced that, we can't do it. There's nothing we can do, or, that was a big loss. We're going to go into hiding for a while, or COVID hit. We can't do anything. We're just going to shut down and wait. Right. Leaders who could reframe the situation and say, what can we do? Right. What are the things, yes, we can't do the things we used to do, but we can't do some things. What can we do? What are the emerging needs of the people we're serving? How do we move forward instead of, well, we can't move forward because we can't do it the way we've been doing it for 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. Those are the leaders in the organizations who are now waking up going, geez, this isn't blowing over. right. I don't know what to do. I'm now I'm panicked. I haven't done anything for 18 months. We haven't raised money. We haven't done anything. And now, oh my goodness, all the PPPs run out. What do we do now?
Right. Yes. It's been an interesting ride, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Damon. And as I like to say, shift happens.
Shift does happen. Yeah, absolutely.
So thanks again.
Okay. You're welcome.
You take care.
Bye.
Bye.